Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today I'm going to be giving my third update on the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, how it could play out, and the potential that is still there to have an active season. As always, do not forget to like and subscribe and even click that bell icon to make sure you do not miss another video. And without further ado, we're going to get right into it here. Starting off with the sea surface temperature anomalies, right? Because they do change, week to week. I do plan on doing these approximately every week or so to kind of give like an update to see what has changed in the forecast for the hurricane season. And as you can see, man, the Western Gulf and the Central Gulf are still well above average here in terms of sea surface temperatures, as well as both coastlines of Florida, the West Coast even going up the Gulf Stream. We'll take a look up there, of course, in a bit. And you can see the Northern Caribbean is pretty far above average. And Northern Caribbean, but out of the Gulf and the Caribbean at least, the Northern Caribbean is generally the warmest zone in the first place. Like, it's already the warmest zone. So the fact that it's further above average than the rest of the Caribbean really says a lot here. And we're gonna show another map that correlates to this later on in the video as well. So yes, pretty far above average sea surface temperatures here. Even for the Eastern Caribbean, we do see some above average temperatures here, again, in the Caribbean. Now let's take a look here at the actual sea surface temperatures, and you can kind of see these darker areas of orange that are starting to form now south of Cuba, even next to like Mexico and Central America. That's where the waters are exceeding 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really what you need to get those tropical systems and hurricanes forming. Of course, over in the Pacific, their hurricane season starts earlier, and it's just naturally warmer over there. So sea surface temperatures over there are well into the 80s. But even some 80s, right? Because the yellow is like upper 70s, like any like those lighter or darker shades of orange indicate 80 plus degree waters. So we see that there in the Central Gulf, the Western Gulf as well. We see 80 degree waters, and even going up the Gulf Stream as well. So waters are really starting to warm up in this region. Pretty much the entire Caribbean is about at 80 degrees, if not a little bit higher. So in terms of the sea surface temperatures, and that's the one factor where I look at it like we could still see at the very least an average season this year, because El Nino tends to decrease activity because of higher shear. But if there's not as much dry air, and if the sea surface temperatures are warmer, then I do think we still have the chance to see an average, or maybe even in a rare case, an above average season. Right? So let's take a look at the past 7 days here, how things have trended. Actually, a little cooler in the Gulf of Mexico, even though and the anomalies are still well above average. So that really says a lot about how warm they were. Not to say that they're cooling down necessarily, because again, the waters are still above average, but a little cooler from where they were. But the Caribbean now, it kind of switched, because before the Gulf of Mexico was kind of warming up, at least in the past 7 days, the sea surface temperature trend, and the Caribbean was cooling down. Now it's kind of a little bit of a switch. So yes, the Caribbean is now starting to warm up. And we're really seeing that oceanic heat content, which is, the spoiler alert, the map I'm going to be showing later that kind of correlates to this one. I'm going to be showing you that buildup in the heat content already that we're seeing. So, how is the Nino 3.4 index looking? Here we are. It actually has kind of had a little spike, and it's kind of like come down a little bit, but still we've seen a little spike here, and now we are at plus 0.179. So in other words, 0.179 degrees Celsius above average. Again, that's like kind of like a mean, if you will, like a total inside that Nino 3.4 region, which sits on the equator and about like south of Hawaii. So we can see here on the CFS model, if we zoom out a little bit here, you can see pretty much a Nino 3.4 region kind of sitting in this zone. All right, and we're going to get to this model in a bit, but I just wanted to show you the Nino 3.4 region. Yes, we have been steadily climbing. I mean, from the beginning of this map, at least through January, we've been steadily climbing, and we've been in ENSO neutral for a few months, or about a couple months, and we're going to stay that way for maybe another month or two before we potentially creep into that El Nino territory. So let's look at the CFS. This is the CHI, I believe it's called. All right, so we're going to take a look at basically the convection. So the green indicating that higher than normal convection, and the orange, brown, reddish colors kind of indicate that the less areas of convection. All right, now the graph, it's not because I'm not scrolling, like the graph is just actually cut off. It's usually not like that. I don't know why, but I'm able to read the dates, so I'll be sure to read these out to you guys. All right, so this is the 22nd of April through the 29th of April, and you can see over the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, a little bit less convection than normal, but out in the tropical Atlantic, we see more. and especially over South America. If you go to the satellite map, you'll see the thunderstorms really lighting up over there. So, and I kind of mentioned this last video, these patterns in the convection kind of shift, right? You'll see everything kind of move in this direction, west to east, over time, right? So see that green area that was just over the Pacific? Well, now that's in the Atlantic. Just in time for May 7th to 14th, we could see increased convection here over the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, while the more concentrated area is over South America. But still, we could see some increased convection just in time for early part of hurricane season. Even though it doesn't start till June 1st, we do typically see activity in May, right? And then through this is like mid-May, average activity end of May. So pretty much staying about average after that, at least on the CFS model. And we've got some new maps as well, so be sure to stick around for those. All right, here we go with the Nino 3-4 region here. We're going to take a look at how it could progress. Now, I believe, so this is from the 8th of April. I believe the next update to this comes on April 26th. So hopefully if I will get to do another video on April 30th, we can do our 4th update and then maybe get an updated version of this. But you can see, according to this projection, maybe hitting that El Nino zone by May, as soon as May. And then continuing into that more moderate, and I do believe this is bullish because I honestly don't know if we'll get to 2.4 to 2.8 because that's a really strong El Nino. I don't think we'll get there, and if we do, it wouldn't happen until the winter time, because I think it would take a while for it to get there. I think a weak to moderate El Nino is most likely at the moment. Of course, that does change. I will keep you guys updated, of course. But that's how it's looking on the Nino 3-4 region forecasting right now. This is from the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. Right? And from that same website, we can kind of see month by month what some of the different models are saying. So again, mostly in the in that ENSO neutral, and you can see the Bureau of Meteorology model at the top. Again, looking a little bullish compared to the rest of them. Now, see, they are different because they actually put 0.8 and negative 0.8 as the El Nino and La Nina criteria, if you will. It is normally, I mean, we measure it as 0.5 and negative 0.5. But I'm actually wondering, maybe if anyone knows, they could leave a comment. But this could actually be because like maybe they're waiting for it to get higher so that they know for sure we're really in the El Nino. And if that's the case, I think that might be what that is, or maybe in Australia they measure it differently, but a little bit different, but still similar in how they measure the El Nino and La Nina. But the general consensus here being ENSO neutral for the month of April. And then for May, of course, we see a progression to the right towards El Nino. So you can see by American standards, we've already hit 0.5. But again, the Australian model's guidelines is 0.8. And you can see the Bureau of Meteorology model and the CanSIPS model have us in El Nino by May in that region. By June, a good chunk of the models, about half of them ish, have us in that zone. All right, and then if we can see here by July, pretty much all the models except for the JMA at this point have us in El Nino. And I think it's safe to say that by June or July, by the early part of summer, we're going to start to see the effects of El Nino settle in, right? Maybe a little bit of a lag time for the effects to really get started, but I think by June or July, and May at the earliest is good timing here for when we're going to see El Nino. And hopefully for the East, we've been seeing some lackluster snow years. Maybe this will be good for snow season. But of course, that discussion will come several months from now. Here's August forecast. You can see Bureau of Meteorology kind of acting like the outlier here. So what you were kind of looking at was this, right? So yeah, I think that's definitely one of the more bullish outlooks, if you will. See, the general consensus in here is like that weak to moderate, closer to moderate El Nino from the rest of these models. And I think that's what's going to end up playing out. So this is the SOI here. I believe it stands for Southern Oscillation Index. And basically what this is kind of measuring is it's kind of corresponding to like the El Nino and La Nina patterns, right? So any value above 7 generally correlates to La Nina, and any value below -7, which isn't even on this map right now because we haven't been there in a while, but anything below -7 would generally correlate to an El Nino. So you can see we've had values pretty high here over the last, this goes 2 years back, and rightfully so, we've been in a La Nina, but you can see values really kind of falling off a cliff right here, all right? And we're currently at -2.4 in the 21st of April update. So again, that kind of represents ENSO neutral, so anywhere between -7 and +7 7 being as in like 7 above 0. So here would be 7, here would be -7 down here. So anywhere in this zone is kind of ANSO neutral. And that's kind of where we're sitting in that zone right now. Just another indicator for the ANSO neutral pattern. So I thought I'd show this. I did show this in my hurricane videos last year, and I believe even the year before that, if you guys remember. So let's take a look at the trade winds and sea surface temperatures out in the tropical Pacific. You can see the sea surface temperatures, and you can kind of see, which I believe that's what the coloring is, and you can see like the trade winds as in the wind direction. Now, this doesn't really show us how strong the trade winds necessarily are, because I believe the shading is for the sea surface temperatures, but what we can tell is like the direction of the trade winds, right? If they're going in, if they like the arrows are pointing in one direction, we know typically the winds are gonna be flowing strongly here, the trade winds, but they're kind of just spread out all over the place, kind of meandering, these arrows you see here, which is signaling to me that the trade winds are weaker, which is typically what we see in an El Nino. So you can already see everything is getting ready to transition here into El Nino. And of course, I mean, the sea surface temperature anomalies in this region are a little bit above average. Although actually cooler in this zone right here, because like the western pack and the eastern pack are kind of warming up, but that will eventually come towards the middle here. And so it is starting to warm up a little bit. As you can see in the sea surface temperature anomaly maps that like we're not too far above average in the Nino 3-4 region yet. So you can see here a little snapshot. Really starting to fill the gaps. Really no blue in here anymore. So you can see kind of this is the Nino 3-4 region. It is starting to warm up now, but the West Coast, wow, it's still pretty far below average as of right now. So, and of course, the Nino 1-2 region right by the South American coast, still wickedly above average, like 5-6 degrees Celsius at least above average. So that's pretty far above average. And even the Gulf Stream, like about 5 degrees Celsius above average, of course, not too far off the coast of the Carolinas. All right, so again, here's another look at the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico. And here we have, you can see the East Pack as well. The Eastern Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic. Pretty far above average. I know it's April. Any activity that we do see will be closer to home, at least for April and May, usually. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it's already warming up out here is another sign that things could get at least a little bit messy this hurricane season. So let's take a look at the dry air. Now, I know this can vary depending on how the storms are moving through. But for April, honestly, I expect personally more dry air. Like I expect like reds, oranges, and these pink colors, as you can see on the key at the bottom of your screen. I expect those to be sweeping the map. And I believe I looked at it the other day, a couple days ago, like there was really not much dry air in the Caribbean. And there is a pretty decent batch coming off of Africa, but it's pretty much lackluster right now. And that's even allowing some convection, you can see, to even escape off of South America and to get, into the Eastern Caribbean, or at least closer, like to the Lesser Antilles island chain there. But yes, closer to home, there is definitely a lot of dry air, and no storm will survive anything that even tries to form. Another reason will be for the wind shear, which is right here. All right, and you can see it's just absolutely like crazy, 70, 80, 90 knots, pretty similar to how it looked last video. Not expecting that to change at least for another month or two. And even when it does change, it will still be above average because that's how El Nino seasons tend to behave here. Oceanic heat content, though, this is the one thing that's worrying me. And worrying me as in like that we will have a more active season. This is me. There's just a couple factors that are like weighing that we can have an active season, and a couple other factors that are weighing the potential for an inactive season, right? That being the dry air, of course. The wind shear and the dry air. But then we have the waters that are really warm. So we'll see. If the dry air can really like back off, I think the hurricane season could still have some meaning here. Any hurricane season, though, that could produce a hurricane for you could, of course, be an active season to some people. But looking at the heat content here, one thing that's worrying me, and I'll actually zoom in here. I might even have to change my color of my drawing pen. But you can see over the Caribbean, that's what I was talking about. So you see there, like the Northern Caribbean is generally that warmest area, but heat content is already like in a key. You can see the key down here that goes from 0 to 150. We're already a good chunk, by the way, of this zone approaching values of 75, even 100 on the Oceanic heat content scale. So that is pretty crazy that we're already starting to see that kind of heat build up, considering it's April. I mean, yeah, it's like middle or towards the end of April, but still, this is definitely above average. And you can already even see, while very light, some is starting to spill over into the Gulf of Mexico. Pretty much all of the Caribbean at this point has some sort of oceanic heat content. And this isn't just measuring the sea surface, it kind of measures the sea subsurface, which of course is also important. So this is another thing that is worrying me as of right now. And if we look at the tropical intensity index, you can see generally highly unfavorable, but only unfavorable here. You might think, okay, well, it still says unfavorable, but you know, the fact that it's April and we're starting to see, you can even see favorable down here. So considering, like I said, not saying any of these things meaning active season yet, but the fact that we're starting to see these signs early in April is something that is concerning me just a little bit. All right, so here again, before we show my forecast, my updated forecast, here you can see typical tracks for June. Again, Caribbean through the Gulf of Mexico, possibly going up the East Coast. That's kind of like what it looks like for June. All right, and so for my third hurricane season forecast, I actually have not made any changes. I believe that we will still, these numbers are solidified right now. Again, you can see all the other forecasts on your screen here. 13 to 15 named storms, 5 to 7 hurricanes, 2 to 3 major hurricanes. All right, because I do believe that this is how the season could play out. Maybe around average, maybe a bit below, a bit above, but around average is what we are thinking as of right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you got to the end of the video, maybe leave a comment saying got to the end. I would really appreciate it. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.